Our next speaker will be Kevin Johnstone. Now, Kevin's been with us for many years. He's on staff here at the Rock Church, and he will be talking about handling emergency operations, well, before and after the recent events that we've experienced. So let's see what Kevin has to say.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Johnstone, and I'm the Operations Safety Manager here at the Rock Church. I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about our pandemic emergency operations plan. And we need to ask you a few simple questions here. How did you do with yours? Did you have an emergency operations plan that was written, available either as a book, binder, or online? Did your plan include pandemic? And if you had a pandemic plan, how did it work? See, at the Rock, we had just completed a months-long revamping of our emergency operations plan when COVID kicked in. On the 9th of March, we completed the plan, completed the major revamp, turned it into a binder, made it available at several locations, and also had it available online. And then COVID hit, and we flipped to the pandemic tab. And on March 19th, the revised emergency operations plan pandemic section was deemed to be extremely inadequate. It was junk at that point, and it was pushed aside. And probably like a lot of you, we started winging it. And we felt that even the government and everybody was winging it because we'd never experienced anything like this. I mean, those of us that were old enough may have remembered polio, and that caused a lot of concern, but it didn't shut down the whole country. And SARS was declared a pandemic, but it didn't have anywhere near the effect that COVID-19 had. So basically, if you're in the same boat that we were, in 2015, not a single person got the answer right to the question, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Let's do a quick review and look at this timeline and look at a couple of the benchmarks here. Right about the first of the year, China identifies a mysterious virus, and it's centered around the Hunan seafood wholesale market. And it involves about 40 people. And they do make people within China aware of it, but they start thinking that it's a fairly simple outbreak that they could deal with themselves. By January 20th, not even 3 weeks later, we have the first U.S. case reported. 35-year-old man in Washington, state of Washington, that is tested positive for the unique COVID virus, or the novel COVID virus. It's not till January 30th that the World Health Organization declares there a global public health emergency. And on February 6th, in the US, we have our first death from the COVID-19 virus. So in approximately 1 month, this thing has moved to the point of causing death in the United States. And on March 11th, it's finally declared by the World Health Organization as a pandemic. And our president declares a national emergency in the United States at that point, shuts down travel and starts taking action to deal with this virus as the numbers start to accelerate. On March 23rd, New York City confirms 21,000 cases of the COVID-19 virus. And that makes New York the epicenter of this outbreak in the US. And by May 21st, the COVID-19 case number surpasses 5 million people. When you look at the map, and this one we did in mid-June, and you see where the epicenters are, this is a global pandemic. We were not prepared for this. We hadn't even thought about it. Back when we were doing the EOP revisions, we hadn't given it much thought. Again, we just said, if somebody shows up and they act like they have the flu, let's isolate them and get them out of here, send them home. But now we have 443,000 people who have died globally, and 116, almost 117,000 of those are in the U.S. This thing swept over us, and we didn't know how to deal with it. We as a church didn't know how to deal with it. We could tell that the CDC and the county health were seemed to be making stuff up as they went along. Here was our timeline within the Rock Church. On March 12th, our incident command system was initiated, and that was a bit of a scramble. Because the following day, a national emergency is declared, and schools are closed. And our Rock Academy, which is a K through 12 academy, was shut down. And by the 15th of March, the determination was made by the Incident Command Group to move all services to an online format. And we had the opportunity to broadcast that online service on Fox 5, the local Fox affiliate. On March 16th, at-risk employees, I was one of them, over 60, asthma, heart disease, we were asked to go home. And we were asked to work from home. And just 3 days later, all the non-essential personnel in the building were sent home. And we'll talk about what non-essential was here in a moment. On the 20th, which was Friday, the whole staff was given a couple of hours to come in and grab what they needed to function in the workplace from home. And then they were dismissed and had to get out. And on that same day, all non-essential spending, which was pretty much all spending, was cut off at the Rock Church. We were starting to get a feeling for just how bad this could become. And at that time, we probably thought this was going to last a month or so, but it showed to be a very wise decision as time went on and this global shutdown extended further. And by May 14th, we'd already taken the steps we did within our safety department. We had a scheduled training, and we were able to do active shooter training online using Zoom for all of our safety volunteers. And we worked with the local office of the FBI to put that training together and conduct it. And it turned out quite well. And we were starting to really get our arms around the pandemic plan, the ban on large gatherings. And at that time, they had banned pretty much any gathering larger than 25. And then very quickly that got down to no gatherings, stay home. And as a church, several departments had to get very involved in that. Our communications department, they had to manage a lot of external messaging. And we'll talk about some of that here in just a moment as well. They certainly use social media for a lot of that, but we had to really fire up our social media sites to make sure that people were getting the absolute latest information from us on what we were going to do. We had to make changes to our website. We were sending out text messages galore, and we had to let people know that we were stopping all live services. We had to let them know that, not only the staff, but we had to let the congregants and other visitors and contractors to the church know that the buildings are closed and that we had moved all of our services online. But for how long? We didn't know. Everybody was guessing at how long this would go on. The HR department had to manage all the employees and the messaging to those employees, asking them to work from home, asking them that if they're ill, that they should stay home for an additional 2 weeks at that time after the cessation of any symptoms. And we started working towards promoting a safety climate among our staff so that people would start wearing masks and start hand washing properly. The safety department had to manage building closures galore. Now, we have a relatively small safety department, and one of the members, myself, was pretty much stuck at home. Not pretty much, I was stuck at home. And so the remaining people in our department had to get signage made for all the doors at all of our campuses. And we had to completely redo our guard schedule. Since most of the campuses were going to be closed, there was no reason to have the kind of coverage we would normally have. Our facilities department started a plan to disinfect our main Point Loma campus from top to bottom. They went through an enhanced cleaning process that was incredibly well done. They were making masks and gloves available to the staff at the beginning. They were stocking up on hand sanitizer when they could find it, and they were stocking disinfectant soaps that were shown to be adequate to deal with this coronavirus. And at about this time, this was 3/16, Mike and I together started developing an initial plan, a whole new plan from scratch. And this was to assist the incident command group that had been formed upstairs, who was made up mostly of our leaders, as you'll see here. We had to activate the incident command system, but we had to know we had to explain to them what justified activating it, what types of incidents would cause that activation. We had to create an organizational structure. We had to provide contact lists, and we had to establish an incident command center. We had to, in this plan, show them different scenarios for issues in the sanctuary. Keep in mind, we hadn't, at this point, when this first started, made the decision, or the decision hadn't been made for us, to shut down our sanctuary and all services in person. We had a children's ministry on Sundays. We had to present potential scenarios for them early on, also for the youth. We had to fire up our public information officer. We'll talk about her in just a moment, because consistent messaging had to go out, not only to the staff, but to everybody who tuned in to find out what was going on at their church at the Rock. We had to have a plan for how we would communicate with our senior pastor. If the decision was made while he was on stage, how that would happen. If he was backstage, how that would happen. Or if it was on a non-Sunday. But most of this was Sunday scenarios. And we had to talk about our ministry and staff notification plan. We were blessed in the fact that a little over a year ago, we brought on a mass notification system for emergencies, a company called Titan, that we could, with a push of a button, get information out to all of our staff, and that information could be two-way so that we could find out where they are, how they were, etc. We had to say, what was going to justify activating the incident command system. And it was determined that would be an incident that threatens the safety or the life of pretty much anybody around this building, our pastor, our staff, and our congregants. And it could be activated with just a perceived threat or a potential threat. The threat didn't have to be up in our face at that point. And of the types of threats that would cause ICS to be open, 3 of them were markers for what we were going into. Obviously, an illness outbreak, pandemic, and as it turned out, our inability to hold services face-to-face. An ICS structure was created, a public information officer, safety officer, liaison officer. We had sections of operations planning, logistics, and finance. And we put names on all of those. And not only was there a name, there was a backup name. And we identified the incident command staff. What you see blocked out here are their phone numbers, because we don't want you calling all us at 2 in the morning. But this was the basically command staff for the incident. And we had additional phone numbers that we wanted the ICS group to have so that they could properly communicate to whoever they need, reach them wherever they were. So we had identified 2 locations for an incident command center. And that could have been, if it was a short-term incident command center that needed to be set up, it would be right outside in our lobby at the security desk. But if this was going to be an ongoing situation, an ongoing incident, then a sustained event location was up in our 3rd floor upstairs in our 3rd floor conference room that had access to phones, Zoom, strong cell service, and whiteboards galore, by the way, so that we could chart where we were going and what we were doing. We identified immediate needs. As it turns out, radios stopped being used for the most part after the first couple of weeks, except internally for the very few people that were still in the building. But we knew we needed Zoom, and we needed to expand on Zoom. And thank God for Zoom. It really gave us a toolbox that we could use to communicate to people face-to-face and let them know on a moment-by-moment, real-time basis what was going on. We wanted phone chargers up there because we could have been there for days on end. And, of course, all the usual pens, pads, markers, things you need to document what's going on. Our public information officer is Mai Ling. She's been with us for years. Very adept at dealing with the press, very adept with all the handling of information that we would feed out. That information we wanted to be absolutely coming from a reliable source, one constant message, period. She identified that any media parking would be off the site, and we had set up a room where any media coming here could be taken to. At this point, CDC early on started coming out with some potential mitigation activities, and we found out just how valuable finding out where the right information was coming from and where it could be found. So, cdc.gov was a great website for us to get up-to-the-minute information. We also had a relationship established with our county public health officer. So we were getting information in many cases long before others. But it ran down the preparedness phase, they called minimal to moderate, which was more about implementing social distancing and some other considerations. And also the need to cancel faith-based gatherings. Here's a couple of things that could have been a challenge that impacted us, but we had some major changes at our leadership level. There was a long, previously announced retirement of our COO, had been with us from the beginning. Incredibly sharp man, and we had been on the hunt and had identified a new COO. But this person hadn't even moved down into the neighborhood yet. And we also lost our CFO, who was replaced. We had a new director of communications that had just come on board, and again wasn't working out of the building even as yet. And we also had a new director of ministry. So about half of that ICS staff were brand new people to the Rock Church, where that could have been like, oh my gosh. It turned out that they brought a wealth of information from other experiences that they'd had from their background. So in fact, it ended up helping us an awful lot. And then later during this event, we had the tragic loss of George Floyd, which was immediately followed by protest and violence. That could have been a huge challenge for us. And then, of course, the economic impact that a shutdown like this was going to have on the community and specifically on our church. So all of these things could have been huge challenges. And fortunately, thank you, Jesus, they were not. One of the first things that was taken up that we mentioned was communication with our staff. And we activated Zoom accounts all over the place. Fortunately, Zoom modified their requirements for having an account. So we were able to extend them out to a lot of people. We gave accounts to department managers, department directors, and each campus had accounts so that multiple Zoom calls could be going on with multiple groups within the church. We established daily morning Zoom calls for some volunteers. And these are just check-in. How you doing? What can we do to help you? But we wanted to keep them informed. We wanted to keep them comfortable. And we also want to know if there was something we could do to help them. We felt this would be incredibly important. Obviously it is. And we still maintain a lot of those contacts today. We have weekly department Zoom meetings that were established. But there was also pop-up meetings on Zoom that we could go to right away when we had something new occur, something that we had to discuss immediately. We had a safety informational check-in for the volunteers once a week. It's on Sundays. And while the number has shrunk slightly of people participating, because the situation hasn't changed that much in an unpredictable way, we still are conducting that meeting. The entire staff here was having weekly Zoom meetings initially that backed down to biweekly, where Pastor Miles would address us as staff. And we would get all the information right from the horse's mouth. And not only where we were at, financially where we were at with the outreaches that we were doing, but also, what was coming up that was really good and how we were helping our community. And we'll talk about those things in just a moment as well. And then each one of our site captains, we have a captain over safety at each site. Each one of them had their own weekly Zoom calls with their leaders. And each one of their leaders was asked to hold a weekly Zoom call with their team members. We started documenting some reopening considerations that we had to keep on the forefront. We wanted to begin right then and there for developing the new plan. We had to figure out how we would resume operations. This wasn't written in any plan. We had to consider a time-phased approach to not only prepare the facility, but educate our staff and our congregants on how we would move forward. We had to communicate all this out to our employees. We had to coordinate with our partners and stakeholders to let everybody from our landlords to the police department to our major donors to everybody just exactly what was going on, keep them fully informed, keep them up to date. We had to, as we mentioned earlier, implement additional facility maintenance tasks. And we're going to talk briefly about that, and you're going to hear about that from Sean, I believe, in another message. We had to address not only the physical, but the psychological impacts that this was bringing about, the isolation, et cetera. This was rough on a lot of people. It was impacting them greatly, and we wanted to address those, not only for our employees, but for their families, and also for the congregants and the people who would typically call in asking for help. And then really important, as far as we're concerned, is the safety department. we wanted to develop an after-action report and basically an improvement plan to note all the lessons learned so that we can improve this plan, our plan, moving forward. Our timeline that we established early on was the immediate return of critical production personnel. That had to be done almost immediately because Miles was going to be filming, and we had to determine where he was going to film. And some of it was going to happen here in the church. Some of it was going to happen elsewhere. But we had to have production staff working on that. So there was a huge focus on getting the critical production personnel in place, involved in the building and educated, and keep them safe. Secondly, the other very critical personnel, our marketing department, our facilities department, additional production staff, and our worship teams, and of course our safety staff had to be brought in, had to be involved on a daily basis, on an hourly basis in many cases. And then we had to address how we were going to deal with the return of the remainder of our personnel, especially those critical ones. That was going to be held working through our directors of departments as well as our pastoral staff. And then finally, the return of the balance of the non-critical support staff. And all this is before we open the doors to the public. We knew that if we were going to reopen first to staff, we had to have a training plan for the staff. And we had to establish sanitation protocols for this building so that staff could come in safely. We had to establish new hygiene protocols for the staff. We had to educate them and get them to, through DocuSign, as it turns out, acknowledge that they were aware of the rules. And if they bypassed the rules, then that would be a challenge for them, and that would be dealt with through HR. And we did this in a video and email combination, some of the training, and the training continues. The in-office protocols, in the middle of June, we changed our hours of operation. We were trying to keep people in the building no longer than 6 hours at a time, and we were encouraging whoever could to work from home, or at least limit the number of days they worked in the building here. Masks were mandatory. There was a new entry and re-entry, because our people like to go across the street to Starbucks and go out and get some lunch and come back in. We had to deal with them when they re-entered the building. We made it so that only 3 people could be in the elevator at a time, and we put a dramatic limit on the number of visitors and vendors and contractors that could enter into the building. Entry protocols was that their work ID had to be displayed very visibly around their neck. Then they would go to the security guard who would check them in. They did have to have a mask when they entered this building. Their mask was in place. The security guard would check them in. He would take their temperature with one of those infrared guns, and he would inquire about symptoms or possible exposure. And then he would issue a wristband, and that wristband color would change on a daily basis. So, and then they would sign in, and they would have to sanitize their hands before they walked in and touched anything, put on their mask, and then again, we limited the number of people that could crowd into the elevator. That was kind of a pinch point for us. We're very strict about the work ID being worn about the neck. HR established sick protocols. And so if you had any symptoms at all, you were to stay at home. And then once the symptoms disappeared, we wanted you to stay at home an additional 14 days, just so that we made sure that you were not continuing to harbor this virus. And you had to go get a test. So if you were tested for the COVID virus, any positive test results had to be reported immediately to our HR department. Sean is going to talk about the sanitation protocols, but these were incredibly important to us because we wanted our staff initially to feel very safe when they came in this building. And there was a lot of apprehension, especially with the at-risk employees who were at more mature, let's say. But they needed to start installing a bunch of things that would make this a safer environment for everyone to work in. Severely limited visitors and contractors into the building. If they didn't have a real reason to be here, they shouldn't be in here. We wanted them to stay away. We didn't know how many people they were dealing with outside who may have contracted the virus. We didn't know that they were trained in proper protocols. Just because they were wearing a mask when they walked in didn't mean that they were fully aware and taking all the precautions necessary. They were all entered into a visitor log. It had to be by appointment. They had to be entered into our visitor log system. And they were then screened, given a wristband, a different color than everybody else. And we required them to remain in compliance with the occupancy regulations that were set by the CDC and San Diego County Health. I don't want to paint this grim picture because, we had a lot of things go right. And to quote Winston Churchill, never let a good crisis go to waste. And this was a great opportunity to display to the community all the things that we do and all the things that we could do. What went right? Well, we had this large established church that had 5 locations, and we were very well known. We had a very strong online presence. Our Sunday services were all being streamed every Sunday. So the transition for us to online services wasn't as difficult as it would have been had we not had those in place, of course. We had a very high-profile annual event in our Toys for Joy event that's at 4 locations every Christmas time. Just about everybody in San Diego County is aware of this event. We also have the Rock Your City events that happen throughout the county all year long. So the Rock Church name is out there quite a bit, and it's attached to very positive things happening in the community. Our pastor had established himself very favorably with the media. Whenever it seemed that the media needed a pastor to talk to for whatever the reason, Pastor Miles was the guy who came in. We started calling him San Diego's pastor, and he became higher and higher profile as things went on. We, as a church, had a great reputation with local government and the leaders. We had the mayor here. We had the head of public health here, had a number of the county supervisors and also the city council members that came through while we were working on some projects that I'll talk about in a second. But we had this great reputation with local government. We had a great relationship with our local police. Always a great thing to reach out and establish those relationships. It helps that we had a break room set up for them where they could get snacks and sit down in a quiet place and have a secure restroom that they could use that was clean and sanitized. It was great that they knew us. We had a very vibrant police and fire chaplain program. So ROC chaplains are out in the community with first responders all the time. And we have a vast network of what we call the ROC community chaplains who are not attached to first responders. They are just out in the community acting in a capacity of a chaplain and reaching out to people, checking on people to make sure they're okay and giving them whatever spiritual assistance that they may need. And we got a lot of calls from people who were confused, were concerned, and they wanted to talk to somebody. We had chaplains that were in place, ready to do that. And then the blessing of all blessings, especially when the racial division reared its head and became turned into, in some cases, violent acts. The killing of George Floyd, that tragedy. Well, 2 years prior, in September of 2018, on September 11th to be exact, our senior pastor had fulfilled a lifelong dream to write a book about racial division. And for the last 2 years, he'd been touring around and not only promoting the book, but promoting the things that were in the book to other churches, other groups, on television, where have you. So he basically had been practicing for that moment for 2 years. So when the tragedy happened and the violence broke out and the peaceful protests happened in large numbers, Pastor Miles was at the forefront and interviewed frequently. We did tremendous service to the community through our security department, safety department. On March 22nd, the fire chaplains, and I'm one of them, and the police chaplains started doing on-call shifts, and we would reach out to fire personnel and police personnel that were quarantined or isolated due to a contact that they'd had with somebody who had suspected COVID. And so, we dialed up the phones and we were talking to a lot of people over that, especially in those initial weeks. We got the opportunity to repair 300,000 expired N95 masks that were in the inventory, but the rubber on the rubber bands had just deteriorated to the point where they were no good. So we replaced those rubber bands on 300 masks. The safety department oversaw people coming in, getting temperature checked, observing social distancing, and we had safety staff overseeing the safety aspect of that throughout that program. Got a lot of attention, a lot of very positive attention, not only from the media, but also from the hospital workers where all these masks eventually went. Fox 5 had Easter at the Rock. It was our first, on April 12th, our first service that was put on the local Fox affiliate. And that was followed by several more. And then on April 15th, the Rock, we started delivering food in large quantities to hospital workers. And they were very appreciative, and we felt very blessed to be able to do that. We also started delivering food to countywide first responders from the northernmost regions in San Marcos down deep into the southern reaches of San Diego County. And again, this was establishing great relationships and solidifying those relationships. On May 10th, the weekly Rock Your City show began on Fox 5. This was a morphing of the Easter at the Rock and our live services that we were doing on Sundays. It was getting great numbers, great attention, so Pastor Miles debuts that. And then on June 20th, we did a project called We Pray San Diego, and we coordinated with a lot of other churches and mayors from other cities, and our safety department had to be very involved as at 11 locations all over San Diego County. We had people that for 1 hour prayed for the city, prayed to relieve us of this virus. So what will the future bring? What will the new normal bring? Will the economy recover? I mean, we have a myriad of questions. Will we ever fill our sanctuary again? What's the impact this is going to have on megachurches that have 3,400 or more seats in their sanctuary? Will we ever be able to fill out those sanctuaries again? How many congregants won't come back? How many of our safety volunteers won't come back? Can we make everyone coming in feel safe? And will all of these things that we've been doing and all these precautions and all of this concern about COVID fade with time? So is the new normal going to be new building capacities with social distancing? Are we going to have a ticketing system that we'll have to implement, like some churches have, where families can sit together, but then there has to be a 6-foot gap, and all that is done on the internet and you reserve your seats, and you come in and you sit in those. And when your sanctuary is full, it says sold out, or words to that effect. But will the new normal bring new relationships? We think so. Will new opportunities to be of service present themselves to us? We think so. But more than anything, this is going to bring about a whole new emergency operation plan. This 140-page document will have to be redone from the ground up. And things that we glossed over before, pandemic, who would ever think? Now we'd have to really concentrate, because any of these things could happen. And what else could happen? What's next? What's sneaking up behind us? And is it going to be a threat to our spirituality? Is it going to be a threat to our church? Is it going to be a physical threat to our people? So we're going back to the drawing board. And that means that we're going to debrief everyone that has a stake in the emergency operations plan. We're going to draw from all the lessons learned, learn from our mistakes, learn from our omissions, and we're going to collaborate with all the different departments. And then we're going to revise again. So here's what I'd like to offer to you. We would like to collaborate. As a church, we'd like all churches to collaborate on an emergency operations plan. These can be expensive if you're hiring consultants. They are very time consuming. And so what we'd like to do is partner with everybody. So if you will send us your emergency operations plan, we will send you our emergency operations plan. We've long been sharing the information learned, and we'd like to increase our collaboration with all of you out there that may be creating or looking to create an emergency operation plan. And if you don't have one, we'll send it to you anyway. And, we'll redact certain parts just as like we would expect you to do. But we would like your information so that at the end of the day, the end of the COVID virus incident, when we shut down our IC, we can write an amazing emergency operations plan together. So here is our information, my information. If you can send it to me in the mail, you can email it to us. And when we get yours, we'll return a copy of our emergency operations plan as soon as the revision is finished. So thank you very much for listening, for taking this time to be with us and hearing our trials and tribulations that we encountered as a safety team. The rest of the morning is going to be great, as will the afternoon. Enjoy your day and take a lot of notes. Thank you.
All you have to do is look at the headlines. You see the precedence is given to school safety now because of the serious incidents that have taken places in schools. That's actually one of the reasons I got into this line of work, because at the time, my two boys were in school. We have 20 schools located over 800 square miles. We went with the Vigilon cameras and Motorola radios because we found that they had the range of products we needed to meet our needs. It fit within our budget, and we found that the camera system and the radios were functional and easy for our administrators to use. We're using a full range of Vigilon cameras in our 20 schools. I think right now we have over 1,100, and we're not quite done yet.
My daddy used to tell me there are three sides to every story, mine, yours, and the truth. Well, the Vigilon system provides the truth. The Vigilon Control Center has made my job easier because it streamlines the process of investigating anything that happens in our building or outside of our building.
We have analytics on a lot of our cameras so that we can snap on an image of a person or a vehicle, pull up thumbnails. That narrows down our search time considerably when we're trying to find something quickly that could be of life and death situation.
Recently, I was given some information about a very important issue that had to be addressed immediately. I was given a specific 5-minute window of time and a specific location. I was able to locate the perceived incident and act upon it immediately. The Vigilant Control Center system saved me, I would say, 20 to 30 minutes. And 20 to 30 minutes regarding this situation would have been detrimental.
We also like a lot of the 180 cameras and 360 cameras because they'll get us into places that fixed cameras won't get us into. We get a lot more coverage than we have with our old system.
The Motorola Solutions Radio and the Avigilon camera system work hand in hand.
So we use about 12 different radio frequencies as part of our Motorola radio system. All of those are options that really help us have an integrated radio system.
One particular situation, a substitute teacher did not dismiss her students on time. So with the Motorola Solutions Radio, we were able to change the channel to the bus radio channel and radio all the buses to come back to the school to pick up the children before we would have to make 30 to 40 phone calls to the parents, letting know that they might have to come to the school to pick up their child.
When you invest in quality security products, the difference becomes immediate. Educators are trying to spend their time educating. Security is something that they have to do in addition to it. So the less time we have them looking for video or trying to contact somebody to get help, the more time they've got to spend in the classroom.
If students are placed in an environment that they don't feel safe, they can't learn. And that's something that we work very, very hard at every day.
Hey guys, my name is Robert Russell and I'm one of the creators of pastorstoolbox.com. I also have the privilege of serving as worship pastor at a church here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And just like you, I cannot wait for the church doors to be opened again. It is an interesting time, and I believe the way that we handle the next few months matter. I believe the ultimate way to care for people is to develop a plan. You know, when it comes to technology, it used to be an option, but now it's necessary. And at Pastor's Toolbox, we believe that technology is going to continue to play an important role for the faith community. And that inspired this idea of an RSVP system. We call it our Save a Seat tool. It's a customizable RSVP software that enables faith leaders to control, measure, and communicate capacity. The Save a Seat software is designed with simplicity in mind. It's user-friendly for the church leader and the churchgoer. Both of those are important. The tool generates a unique link for each place of worship to share across social media platforms and embed on their websites. It's such a neat tool. And you know what? It scales. Depending on the size of your congregation, church leaders have the ability to offer reservations to multiple campuses, services, days of the week, different service times, and even it allows for capacity management with overflow venues. So for large churches, small churches that have overflow options, this is a tool for you. You know, one click places the attendee in the reservation process. Attendees receive a confirmation for every request, and because life happens, the confirmation has a cancel reservation option, which immediately frees up their spot for someone else. We believe in this tool. Our belief is that this tool will help the church gather again with the same regard that has been given to social distancing. We need to take this seriously. You know, and we need to have a plan. Strategy is an act of love. Regulating capacity will be a continued measure to respect government requests and keep our faith community safe. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you know someone that needs to see this video, go ahead and send it to them. We want all churches to hear about this. We believe this is instrumental in the church gathering safely.
Radio service, radio check.
Bearcom is always on. All day, every day, our products, solutions, and associates are always on and can be counted on to serve our customers' needs. As North America's largest distributor of wireless voice, data, and video solutions for business, education, and public safety applications, Bearcom delivers the right wireless solution for every environment. We design and deploy solutions that improve efficiency and boost productivity while adding safety and security to over 16,000 customers across the U.S. and Canada. Bearcom serves customers from multiple locations across North America, as well as from its state-of-the-art 96,000 square foot headquarters located in Garland, Texas. From this facility, Bearcom programs, kits, and distributes over 49,000 sales orders per year with a 98% accuracy, and maintains a product inventory of nearly 15,000 items in our warehouse to reduce back orders and better serve our customers. Additionally, Garland serves as Bearcom's national repair depot and the distribution hub for over 30,000 push-to-talk rental devices, including over 2,000 extended push-to-talk devices. This rental inventory supports the nation's largest festivals, television award shows, and professional sporting events, satisfying over 16,000 customers annually. Bearcom headquarters also supports a network operations center, which remotely monitors key customer sites for system disturbances, allowing service technicians to be quickly dispatched to avoid costly delays. Bearcom has unmatched North American resources and local presence in most major cities, with branch locations ranging from Alberta to Toronto in Canada and from New York to Los Angeles in the U.S. This breadth of coverage allows Bearcom to locally serve our customers with customized end-to-end solutions and the highest levels of service. With a national field service team of over 165 trained and certified technicians, Bearcom can manage sophisticated public safety, petrochemical, and manufacturing solutions to routine break-fix repairs for any customer. At Bearcom, when jobs and lives are on the line, you can trust us to provide wireless solutions and services that keep everyone connected, improve productivity, and deliver a greater sense of security every time. Bearcom, always on.
Hi, I'm Philip Kazan. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Verkada. At Verkada, we're building the world's best video security system. What that means is no NVRs, no DVRs, just a software-driven solution that delivers modern security to your building. Let me show you how it works. When you log into Verkada Command, you'll see one single dashboard where you can view all of your cameras all around the world. What's amazing about this dashboard is it works on any device. So if you're on your tablet on the go, you can view your cameras and monitor the situation. All of this works with no network configuration, so you don't have to worry about logging into VPNs or setting up firewall rules to make the system work. When you zoom in on the map, you'll see a floor plan, and on this floor plan, all of your cameras will be laid out within your building. Clicking through any one of them will pull up the live video. So let's take a look at that. Here we can see one of the cameras that's outside of our office in San Mateo looking at the street. You can see the cars driving by and people walking by, and that's really what that live view up top of the page is about. Now, as I scroll down the page, what you'll see is a history view of the camera, which captures everything that the camera has recorded, and we store up to 120 days of that history. What's awesome about the history view is that it's broken down into hourly chunks. And so for any given point in time, I can hover my mouse and move it from left to right to see everything that was happening at that exact point in time. It's a very, very easy way to browse the camera's history and find out about the incidents that occurred. Now, we wanted to actually take it a step further, and so with that we introduced motion search. I can scroll back up to the top of the page and highlight any region of the frame to find out exactly what happened at that spot. So for example, if I highlight the crosswalk in this scene here, I will instantly get results of all the cars and people that crossed through the spot that I highlighted. What's awesome about this is I can also set alerts to be notified about any activity in any particular region. Let's switch gears a little bit and take a look at one of the cameras in our office. Imagine you wanted to see everyone who've entered and exited your space. For this, we've developed a feature called Face Search. With Face Search, you can pull up a list of the individual faces of people entering or exiting a camera's view. So as I scroll down the page now, I can see everyone who's appeared in frame. If I click on Scott, I can now pull up all the times where Scott entered and exited the frame. Last but not least, I wanted to show you just how easy it is to share access to any Verkada camera in real time. With just a click of a button, you can send an SMS message with a link that gives temporary access to any number of users in the world. On the receiving end, it's just a link. You can pull it up on your phone, view live video, browse the history, and in emergency situations, respond in real time. If you have any questions, or if you'd like a free trial, please contact us at sales@verkada.com. Thanks for watching.